Hello everyone and welcome to today's episode of Digitain's podcast. I'm your host, Hmayak Arakelyan, Head of Sales for Eastern Europe at Digitain. Today's episode is a logical continuation of Digitain's European journey. Digitain has been quite successful in Europe for many years, and last years we have migrated many new businesses into our portfolio. However, due to the fact that we have recently received our UKGC license, I think it's important for this episode to concentrate into UK and Western European markets. For this matter, I have asked my colleagues, our Regional Sales Director Alex Jones and CEO of Realm Edmond Ghulyan, to participate at today's episode. Hello, gentlemen.
Hi.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
How are you doing?
Great.
Excited.
It's a pleasure to have you here at the podcast today. And if you don't mind, let's dive into our topics today. And I prepared a couple of questions that I wanted to discuss with you and understand how do you feel about it. My first question will be to both of you. What do you think is truly required to run a successful business in UK market? Alex, you can start if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah.
Move to Edmond.
Look, I think, UK market is very specific compared to a lot of others, even within the regulated space. I think you have to have a very much compliance-first mindset due to the regulations and things that are in place there. In terms of what we provide a very feature-rich platform, but that now has a compliance-first mindset that helps our operators do what they need to do in that space whilst attracting their increased number of punters. Obviously, I can't sort of mention what UK needs without touching on horse racing and greyhounds, which I'm very happy to say we are close to completing our own horse racing greyhound solution. But the key, of course, is, like I said, to have a feature-rich turnkey platform that we can help provide that ultimately has a compliance-first mindset alongside the rich features.
Edmond, your thoughts about?
Just to add to what Alex already mentioned in terms of turnkey solution, that's we know and we discussed in the previous episode as well. Digitain is, we have proven record of successful turnkey migrations in a number of different countries, and UK is not an exception. That's what we aim for, and you mentioned we already have the license. I think trusted technology partner, that's what's the key, not only for the UK, but for many markets, especially the heavily regulated ones. For the UK, as already mentioned, we have the license, so we've gone through the process internally. We've validated our product readiness for the different requirements that we have for the UK market. Quite a great deal of attention to regulatory requirements, compliance-related requirements, as well as safer gambling practices, which are very important specifically for the UK market.
Alex, coming back to what you said about the products and features that we have, can you remember anything specific that is required for the UK market that Digitain can offer?
Sure. So, look, it's no secret that the UK is a highly competitive and very saturated marketplace. We're all aware of that. I think, there are key initiatives and key features that a lot of the tier ones roll out regularly that I see us being able to provide to tier 2 and tier 3 providers that will help them grow in that space. Things like the board draw, things like the super sub that you see Paddy Power offer. A variety of different functions and features around sports bonusing, sports jackpots. These are all sort of key differentiators that not a lot of other people are offering. Like I said and touched on before, horse racing and greyhounds, of course. I think the key for the future is going to be personalization, but also looking at it with a youthful mindset. And what I mean by that is trying to attract a younger generation of gambler to your platform. Ultimately, the Gen Zs, it's about trying to make it gamified and more personal so they can engage themselves. So, we're sort of thinking about that with everything we're doing here at Digitain.
You clearly mentioned a couple of features, but to be honest, from my previous experience, what I have had is some features might be blocked or not allowed by the regulator to be promoted or to be used on a website. And thus, Ed, having a vast experience in sports betting and in regulated markets, how our sportsbook shaped throughout these processes of regulations, of compliance, of changes of regulation? Maybe you can give us a bit of an update about this.
Sure. The question is not specific to Sportsbook, I believe, because all the products in our portfolio, we're talking about product development practices. The way we develop the product is that we add different features and functionalities, but we take into consideration the jurisdictions where we operate, which basically means that in a certain area where if you're not allowed to offer a particular feature, or if it's not provisioned in the regulation or it's prohibited, it's just back office configuration from our side as a B2B provider not to allow these features to be used in those particular markets. So to answer your question, yes, there are certain features and functionalities which are available both on the platform side and Sportsbook side, also on the casino engine side, which these are not practices that can be used by operators in the UK, then this will be automatically disabled and not allowed to be used in those markets. On the contrary, there are markets where these can be used, and because we are a B2B provider and we want to stay competitive, and it's difficult to do because you need to maintain a number of different versions of the product for different markets, but I think that's the way to go to compete in a number of different markets at the same time.
Thank you for an answer. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think additionally, one of the other most important things there is to have internal processes in the company that helps to run the regulation, that helps to follow up what your partners are doing. And can you give us a brief about these internal regulations and processes of Digitain? Because we have many, how they are working, how they are helping to shape the market as is.
We throughout the past probably couple of years, Digitain has scaled quite a lot in terms of the jurisdiction we operate in terms of the regional offices that we have, in terms of the manpower that we employ. And obviously, the more we expand into different markets, the more we understand, while in the planning stage, that we need to also scale internally. And that's what we're doing. So if we go back a couple of years ago, we had smaller compliance teams, legal teams working on specific areas or specific projects. Now we have bigger departments, and these departments are now multi-vertical, meaning it's not just the planning to enter a particular market, it's also the subsequent monitoring of our presence in that market. So what we need to do, what we need to take care of to stay compliant with the operators already onboarded on our products. So this is how the processes and the practices and the teams inside the company also change over time as we grow and expand into a number of different markets.
It's interesting. Thank you for an answer. It's interesting because both of you many times during our conversation mentioned compliance, and I want to return to a question about compliance. What are maybe you share with us your views about compliance, how it is helping or how it is not helping to grow the businesses in various Western European or UK markets, as you wish?
Sure. So I think, compliance will always be here and it will only become stricter potentially. I think it's about getting in front of it, understanding the regulations from the UK GC and other partners, and basically making sure that we have the compliance first mindset and ensuring that players, ultimately our partners' players, are protected, whether that be looking at behavioural analysis, monitoring through things like GamStop, and basically looking at impact on a player's welfare. It does actually, there's proven stats that it does actually lead to a longer lifespan of the better. So it is in everyone's interest, ours in particular. And I think the other thing I'd say is, obviously our discussion so far has very much been a two-piece. I'd say one, the compliance, which is obviously the nitty-gritty and is absolutely key, and two, the product feature side of things, which is in my opinion, the far more sexy, far more exciting stuff. But that's just me. And I think, we're well placed to provide both of those.
Do you have any thoughts that you want to share with us?
I think our product portfolio, and in particular, if we're talking about most of the compliance features, they sit on the platform. We have a number of those in our portfolio that we offer, and it's not just because regulators say so or requirements say so. It's also because Digitain cares about the safer gambling practices. And that's why when we do and engage in product development, these are the things we also consider. So we do have a number of features that operators can actually try to use on their side, even though it's not required by the regulators, starting with the very simplest options that are indeed set in the regulations, such as timeout, self-exclusion, deposit limit, bet limit, but there are also others, access limit, meaning you restrict access to the website for a particular day or time, and things like that. So I think it's about making compliance practices, safer gambling practices part of what you do and how you develop your product and how you approach the business. So it's more about that rather making our life difficult or making the operator's life difficult. Because if you make it part of the business, then it becomes business as usual, and then you start paying attention to it. And I think in the end, everyone is just better off.
Thank you. Thank you for the answers. Alex, I have another question that came to my mind. Actually, a couple of weeks ago, I have had a partner who visited us here at Digitain. And his plan was in shorter period of time to conquer Western Europe, more particularly UK. Obviously, this sounded a bit unrealistic to me because the timeline and the given budget that they had was quite low for UK. From your perspective, do you think that operators usually underestimate the Western Europe or UK market as is?
Look, do so at your own peril is what I would say. I think, there's no secret it's an expensive place to work and operate. Particularly with the hike in tax recently for both Sportsbook and casino. I mean, Sportsbook's obviously not coming till next year, but casino is, very, very soon coming up to 40%. So I think the key thing here is to understand tone of voice. Just because you have an operation in, say, Romania or Sweden doesn't mean you can copy and paste that into UK and it's going to work. You absolutely need to understand the nuances, the culture, the biggest sports and how fans interact with gambling, because it's absolutely key. And to your point, you're right. You need to have a very healthy budget for the UK market because the cost per acquisition is sizable.
Yeah, thank you. I completely agree with you. I think that even in UK, when the operators, or even if not mention UK, in Romania, two operators can have two very different strategies. Yes. One thing working for one operator in Romania doesn't mean it's going to work for the second one in Romania. Yes. So I completely agree with what you are saying. And given the features, the tools, all this that we have talked about during this conversation, again, the question to both of you, maybe, do you think the operators, all that we have can help operators to gain a confidence on entering the market?
Going after you.
I think the answer is definitely yes. We can help. Digitain is there to help with the product portfolio we have, with the service that we provide, and also with the mindset that we've been working so far, and we're eager to continue working in Western Europe and UK. The products that we have in our portfolio, they're quite mature. Before even going for UK GC license for UK specifically, obviously we have been doing our sort of homework, understanding what is lacking, what we miss, what we need to add, is sort of what direction the product should develop, and that's what we've been doing. As Alex mentioned, horse racing is now we're finalizing that portion, which is quite crucial for the UK market. I think from the product perspective, we are ready. And I think Digitain does have an advantage of being a flexible partner, a trusted partner, but also a flexible partner. And we do understand that market entry, especially today when it's very, very competitive, it's difficult to ensure a competitive entrance to a market. So being flexible, both for Western Europe and UK, is critical. And I think we can demonstrate that flexibility. And also that's something that I highlighted in the previous podcast. So I think that's very important. So apart from the product readiness, also the flexibility that we're ready to show, I think that's critical.
Alex, your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I'd agree completely. I think trust, reliability and scalability are all key metrics, and we can deliver on each of them. I think, ultimately, No one knows an operator's customers better than they do, which is why I'm sort of challenging operators in the UK and Western Europe to come to us with a wish list. You know, what is it you're looking to achieve? What's your biggest pain point? Where are you struggling most? You know, we have an incredible team of solutions providers and problem solvers. So put us to the test. That is my challenge to the market, because I know we can deliver. And we're very, very thoughtful in terms of things like commercials and approach, especially with the recent tax hikes, which I appreciate are crippling for a lot of operators, particularly the smaller ones.
Thank you. Completely agree what you are saying. That was it for our today's podcast. It was nice having you here with me and sharing your thoughts.
Thanks for having us.
See you next time.
Cheers, man. Thanks.
Thank you.
And that was it for today. Thank you for staying with us and listening to our thoughts about Western Europe and UK. Stay tuned for our next episodes.